We're going to talk about the world's most scientific whiskey. If you like whiskey or you'd like to like whiskey, you're in the right place. We do whiskey videos every week, so click the subscribe button and you get whiskey videos like this straight into your inbox, if you remember to ding the bell. So click the subscribe button and ding the bell. What we're trying here today is Ailsa Bay. And Ailsa Bay is unique in the whiskey industry, or at least positioning itself in a way that's focusing on the science of whiskey. A lot of times when you're talking about whiskey, it tends to focus on the art. And you think about a place like Lowland, who make an amazing peaty whiskey through the nose and skill and talent of all the people that have been working there. And that's not to say that Ailsa Bay doesn't have a lot of really talented people, but what they're trying to do is focus on the science behind it. One of the ways they do that is by measuring their peat parts per million, SPPM, and their sweet parts per million, SPPM.
Too many P's.
Too many P's. Way too many P's. It's written on here, and if I just read from this, it would be smarter. So this is 22 ppm and 19 SPPM. There you go.
Too many P's.
Too many P's. So many P's. All the P's are in this whiskey. But what they're doing is trying to measure and be very scientific about what is actually going into this whiskey. And I think that's really interesting. It's not like it's unusual. There are other distilleries that measure their phenol parts per million, ppm, like Bruichladdich, for example, has been doing that for a long time. But the focus here on trying to use the measurements in a scientific way to create a specific balance between peat and sweet is interesting, and something that I'm interested to try. The other thing that's gone into this is what they call micro maturation. Again, something that's interesting. So they put it into a first fill barrel from Hudson Bay for a very short amount of time to try to extract flavors quickly, and then they put it into other types of bourbon barrels. So it might be virgin first fill bourbon barrels, or it might be a second fill, which is more traditional, to create a very specific flavor. And again, that's not to say that other distilleries aren't creating specific flavors, but they're trying to approach it in a slightly more scientific way. And as a man who likes science, I'm excited to give it a go. So let's try Ailsa Bay. Let's start with the nose. On the nose, it reminds me of like a Laphroaig, very sort of that medicinal peat. Unabashedly, this is definitely a peaty whiskey. I mean, even if you just stuck your nose in that, you'd hurt yourself. Don't do that. You can kind of just smell it from up here, smell it from afar. But yeah, it's definitely more of that medicinal, rather than sort of bonfire smoke. Maybe like smoked fish, smoked salmon kind of nose. Interesting on the palate. Definitely delivering something different. As far as sweetness, it's maybe off dry, but I guess that's not surprising because they have said that this is not meant to, that there is, scientifically speaking, more peats part per million than sweet parts per million in this. I'm not getting loads of sweetness through it. It is definitely more in that sort of off dry category. If you're someone that doesn't really like a lot of alcohol bite, this is for you. This is surprisingly strong, so it's 48.9% ABV. Between us friends, let's call it 49% ABV, and it doesn't taste it. This is really smooth on the palate. Definitely doesn't have any kind of alcohol sting. The body is light which is, again, that's really interesting, and maybe that's where that sweetness is maybe cutting some of that peat out. I find that a lot of really peaty whiskeys, to me, tend to be quite full or medium-bodied, whereas this is a light-bodied whiskey. And I like that with kind of those peaty notes coming through, not being too mouth-coating. As far as when we start talking about the taste, if I were to say as a peaty whiskey, it's pronounced peat. It definitely, without a doubt, is a peaty whiskey. But let's park that. If we take that peatiness to one side and we say, yes, we get it, you're peaty, cool. Let's look at what else this whiskey has to offer. So taking that aside, you actually do get some interesting sweetness coming through. And I'd say it's more sort of like a light, botanical-like sweetness. So kind of the sweetness that you get in like a gin or a flavored vodka. There is some sweetness on the palate, and that's really interesting when you start to dissect it. Your first taste is to definitely say peat. And if you can't be bothered to take the time to appreciate the nuanced flavors, all you're going to get is peat. But if you are looking for that sweetness and you're trying to get something that's different, and you make that conscious effort to pick out those different flavors, they're here. And I like that. I think that that's really interesting, and that it gives you something that is unique amongst the peaty whiskeys. Going on to the finish, it is a long, very complex finish. I think that that's the thing I like the most about this whiskey, is that finish. Goes on for a long time, plays lots of notes, highs, lows, bit like that roller coaster kind of finish to it. Really enjoyable finish. So, all in all, this is definitely a whiskey that is, I dare say, unique. I don't think I've had many whiskeys that taste quite like this. It is 55 pounds?
Yeah, about 55.
About 55 pounds. So not the cheapest whiskey out there, but at that price point, if you're looking for something that's a bit different, something worth giving a go. Particularly if you're someone that likes peaty whiskey but wants to experience how peat can be used in a different sort of way. This is a really good way to do that. If you're someone that wants a strong peaty Ardbeg, not for you. It is peaty, but it's not overpoweringly peaty, which maybe that's why it appeals to me a bit more. I'm not someone that loves a peaty whiskey. I need a bit more to it, and for me, that's what you get with this whiskey. So, yeah, let me know what you think in your comments below. Have you tried this whiskey? If so, what do you think? What's your view on peaty whiskey? Should peaty whiskey always be unabashedly peaty, or is there space in the market for something that has peat but maybe offers some other sort of notes to it? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe to Top Whiskies. We do new whiskey videos every week.